Did anyone ever try to take your baby? When I told my mother I was pregnant, she smiled and said, "Perfect timing. Your sister's infertility treatments just failed again, and I already promised her you'd have a baby for her." I'd been raised watching my mother give away everything I owned to my older sister. When I got toys for Christmas, Mom would let me play with them for a week before giving them to Jane because she needed them more. I thought it was just favoritism until I realized Mom genuinely believed I existed to provide for Jane. She'd tell people I was Jane's little helper and that God gave her 2 daughters so one could support the other. When Jane got married and couldn't conceive, Mom started dropping hints about other options. She'd stare at my stomach during family dinners and tell Jane not to worry, that solutions appeared when you had faith. I was too naive to understand what she meant. I thought she was talking about adoption or egg donation, not that she'd already decided my future children belonged to my sister. My husband David and I had been trying for a year when I finally got pregnant. I wanted to wait to tell my family, but David insisted we share the joy. When I told Mom at Sunday dinner, she clasped her hands and turned to Jane. "See, I told you God would provide." Jane started crying with relief while Mom explained that I'd be giving the baby to my sister after birth. She'd already told Jane I'd agreed to this plan months ago. I stood up so fast I knocked over my chair. I told them they were insane if they thought I'd give away my baby. Mom's face went cold. She reminded me of all the sacrifices Jane had made, how she'd given up her career dreams to try for a baby, how her marriage was failing from the stress. "You can have more babies," Mom said. "This is Jane's only chance." David grabbed my hand and we left while Jane sobbed that I was stealing her baby. For the next few weeks, Mom called constantly. She'd leave voicemails about how Jane was wrecked, how I was culling my sister by keeping the baby. She sent photos of the nursery Jane had already decorated, the clothes she'd bought, the name she'd chosen. When I blocked her number, she started showing up at my work. Security had to escort her out when she tried to follow me into the bathroom to talk sense into me. We decided we needed to get as far away from the as possible before the baby was born. David got a transfer to another state and we left without telling anyone. I gave birth to our son in peaceful anonymity. For 6 months, we were a normal family. Then David's mother accidentally mentioned the baby to someone from our hometown. Within days, Mom found us. She brought Jane, who'd lost weight and looked haunted. 6 months, Jane whispered. "I've been waiting 6 months for my son." She'd been living as if the baby was hers, telling everyone about her child who'd been temporarily placed with me. In her world, she was already his mother. Mom explained calmly that Jane's husband would leave if she didn't come home with the baby. Her marriage, her sanity, her life depended on getting her child. I tried to slam the door, but Jane put her foot in the way. "Please," she begged. "I'll let you visit. You can be his aunt. I'll even let you babysit sometimes." She genuinely thought she was being generous. When I still refused, Mom's expression hardened. She said if I didn't hand over the baby voluntarily, they'd take him anyway. Jane had already filed paperwork claiming I'd agreed to be her surrogate. They had forged contracts, fake emails, an entire paper trail showing I'd promised her this baby. David called the police, but Mom and Jane left before they arrived. The officers said without immediate threat, it was a civil matter. We hired a lawyer who said the forged documents were obviously fake but would still need to be disputed in court. While we waited for a hearing, Mom escalated. She called CPS claiming we were drug dealers. She contacted David's employer saying he'd stolen money. She filed for emergency custody as the concerned grandmother of a child in danger. Each false report required investigation, draining our savings on legal fees. Meanwhile, Jane started showing up everywhere. The grocery store, the pediatrician, the park. She'd follow at a distance, taking photos, studying our routines. She'd mouth my baby whenever our eyes met. I couldn't sleep, constantly checking locks, afraid to leave the house. David started missing work to guard us, which his boss didn't understand. Then came the letter from Jane's lawyer. She was suing for custody based on maternal alienation. The forged surrogacy agreement was attached, along with statements from family friends swearing I'd promised the baby to Jane. Mom had convinced half our hometown that I was a surrogate who'd stolen Jane's child. The lawyer said we could fight it, but it would take years and cost everything. Or we could settle out of court with a visitation agreement that started with weekends and expanded over time. We were sitting in our living room, exhausted and broke, when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Jane holding a car seat. Behind her stood Mom and 2 men I didn't recognize. "We're here for the baby's overnight visit," Jane called through the door. "The court order is signed." My hands shook as I checked my phone. Our lawyer had sent an emergency text. The judge had granted temporary visitation pending the full hearing, starting immediately. David was calling the police while I held our son, but I knew they'd have to enforce the court order. Jane knocked again, harder this time. "Open up," she said sweetly. "Mommy's here to take you home." Behind her, Mom smiled. They'd won this round, and we all knew once Jane had him for even one night, she'd never bring him back. Full story on the channel below.